The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're so thrilled to be here with you on this Wednesday morning. We're going to be with you for the next 2 hours. However, I have to tell you, I'm going to get the disappointing news out of the way that we don't have Dr. Grant-Pichet this morning, but Samantha has found a really wonderful Ask Dr. Doreen that we're going to show you. But then we will be back live for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy Allspot Jackson will be joining me. We have a bunch of fabulous guests. We're going to be joined by Tori Ridgway and his mom, Vanessa. This is a remarkable young man who's risen to such heights. He's a teenager on the spectrum, risen to such heights as a scout that he has been nationally recognized. And so we want to talk a little bit with him about what scouting can do for individuals who are on the autism spectrum and what he's got going on. And then we have Lois Jean Brady, who's been on the show many times before from Eye Therapy. And I always let people know that are exciting and get things done. When you've got something new to unveil, call me, we'll get you on the show, and she's got something new to unveil. So even I'm going to be a little bit surprised, can't wait to see. So that's a little bit about what is going to be happening over the next 2 hours. I do want to remind you that the entire show is meant to be interactive. We do want to hear from you. I know, I can feel it's palpable, your disappointment that Dr. Grant-Pichet won't be here. I know it's always the best when she's here, but you know what I always say, that when she gets called away on the case for a kiddo or something else, that we have to defer to that. But as I understand it, she will be back next week. And so we do keep your questions and try to fit them in the following week. So, but I want to remind you to keep interacting, because that's really the key. Samantha's going to show you some of the different ways that you can interact, some of the different ways that you can connect with us, because honestly, I find that's one of the most empowering things I hear from you guys. That's empowering for you, and it's certainly empowering for us on this end. I do want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com, and lots about to change on that site as well. But for right now, all you have to do is click on the triangle that is on the computer screen. That will start either the live show or the most recently recorded live show, and you'll be able to watch. Now, to the side of all that is something called the live feature. And it is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I know some people misunderstand and think somebody is available to chat with you. It's not a chat in terms of that, but it's a place for you to be able to ask questions at any time or day or night. I'm able to read them when we're here live. And then we have the promise of being able to, it's really fun when you're here and I'm here at the same time, but that doesn't work for everybody. But you can put your questions in, and it keeps it anonymous. You know, when you're writing it on Facebook or you're writing it on YouTube, that's great, and there's that instant gratification when you're watching the live show, but it also reveals who you are for other people to see your comment, and for everyone that's not the most comfy, right? So the live feature, you can write in your questions, you're completely anonymous, and it's totally free. All of the places that we are, all of the things that Autism Live brings to you are free, because we know that you've got enough going on, right? We want to help you with resources and support without it costing you more. So use the live feature, and it doesn't matter what day or time, and I do get an opportunity to see them. So having said all that, I don't want to put any more pause, because even when it's not live, Dr. Grant-Pichet is amazing. So check this out, and then I will be back at the top of the hour live with Let's Talk Autism and Shannon and Nancy. But right now, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Granpeesheh, for those of you who don't know, is an amazing, I think the preeminent expert in the field of autism. And she's a visionary. And you founded the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. You also founded Autism Care and Treatment Today, a wonderful charity. And she gives us this time every Wednesday, an hour where she answers your questions in real time, which I always think about when we start this. I always think how much that would have meant to me in the very earliest days of autism if I had known that I could have asked you a question. Oh my gosh. So I'm so thrilled and proud that we have her pretty much on a weekly basis, sometimes with little breaks because you have to be other places.
Right.
And we're grown-ups, we appreciate that sometimes you're called away to other places.
Thank you very much.
But thrilled to have you here. We do give the disclaimer at the start of the show that even an expert of Dr. Granpeesheh's caliber cannot give individual specific advice in this format. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
It would be disrespectful to the person who's on the autism spectrum that you're asking questions about. But please send in your questions. And by the way, we welcome questions from parents, teachers, practitioners, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and most especially from individuals who are on the autism spectrum themselves. I know more and more individuals are writing in with questions, and we absolutely love that. This is a big, beautiful spectrum of a community, and everybody is welcome to write in with their questions.
Absolutely.
So, having said that, we have 7 pages of questions, but we're going to be looking at what you guys have to say. Hey, Dottie Davis, we see that you're watching. Thrilled to have you here with us. And those of you, if you want to write in, I know we used to in the past tell Dr. Granpeesheh when you guys would write in and say where you're from. And we'll try to squeeze that in from time to time because I know that gets really exciting. I want to start with some questions, and we'll get through as many of them as we can.
Fast, yes.
All right. Some of the ones at the beginning are really easy. About how long does it typically take from beginning of an application with CARD until the beginning of therapy?
Right, so that is variable, and I just sort of want to explain the process of when someone applies to CARD. So if you go on our website, generally you're entering through our website, and you will then go through to admissions. And what the admissions team does, we are on their back all the time so that they're as fast as they possibly can be. So admissions will send you some forms to fill out, basic stuff, and you will then send us your basic information, which is essentially your insurance card, and most of our clients are insurance funded, so that's the process. And then they will submit that information. They'll contact your insurance company for coverage. Now that is then out of our hands at that point. Usually we will get a verification that you have coverage, but not what type of coverage, what amount of coverage, what is your policy, what's your copay, what's your coinsurance, all that sort of stuff is good stuff that we need to wait on your insurance company to give back to us. Some insurance companies have information listed on their website about different policies. Very few do. Most of them actually just last year in 2017 started to accept requests from us online. Up to that point, believe it or not, we had to fax in requests. Fax, yes, that good old fax machine. We still have fax machines only because of this purpose. So it is really, some of the delay has to do with the insurance company. Then we receive the authorization only for an initial evaluation. And so then we get to schedule the initial evaluation with one of our supervisors and then you go in and the supervisor conducts an evaluation. Various insurance companies will have different requests, so some will have testing requirements. Then we have to schedule testing to be done for your child. They will always, every insurance company will require a diagnosis, which could be within the last couple of years, but they will request the diagnosis, and some will want verification of the diagnosis through testing, such as the ADOS. Those types of things will tend to delay the process. We, of course, do conduct this testing, but we're not always in this where you are. So that's one thing. The second thing is some of your insurance companies request home observations, school observations. We have to do all of that, and once we've done all of that, we have to generate a report with recommendations based on what we feel is appropriate for your child. That all has to be written up, submitted to the insurance company again. We get all of that done usually within a month. Then that goes to the insurance company, and then we have to sit on it and wait for the insurance company to authorize. That then gets your case transferred to authorization. In authorization, our authorization department, while we're waiting on that, we will give you a bunch of paperwork to fill out, which now is getting to be extensive because it's not just paperwork for your insurance company, but it's assessments for your child. And the faster you fill that out, that helps us. And then once we get the authorization from the child, from the insurance company, we have a limit of 30 days in which to start. So the whole process maximum should be no more than 3 months, but generally it's running around that time because it's very new to insurance companies, this whole field. And they're all extremely different. Kaiser has a system where they skip all that and they start on day one. So that's a much, much faster process. So if you're a Kaiser patient, we'll be starting you within 10 days, which is a totally different thing. TRICARE has a multitude of requirements. So if you're a military family, TRICARE requires all of our individual therapists to be approved on their site. So that holds things back. There's all these different requirements that we're trying to do as fast as possible. We have 200 people at CARD whose job it is to get people through admissions and authorizations and credentialing. So it's kind of a crazy process, so please bear with us.
Okay, but gives you an idea. And there are things that you can be doing during that time. CARD is doing more to help you during that time, because I know firsthand what it's like when you know, okay, this is what we want to do. From that moment to the first time a therapist is with your kid is excruciating, right? But there are things that you can do. CARD's been very mindful about how to best use that time. There's trainings that are available to you. At a certain point, there's somebody called a family support expert who gets to meet with you and help you to get your stuff in order. We just had a conversation about that other day, Vince Redmond and I, about getting them started earlier. And there are support groups, there's ways that you can get connected. So if you're in that process and feeling the pain of it and want more to do, if you're already overwhelmed, I don't want to overwhelm you more, but if you want more to do, you can reach out to me and I can help to connect you to some of the other things that you can be doing to get yourself ready. Because there's considerations. There's things that you got to rearrange in your day and in your life and in your car and in your bathroom to get yourself ready so that your kid can get the most out of this.
Definitely.
So there's even a video that I did this last summer that are my 10 tips for how to get the most out of your CARD program. And we could be getting that to you.
Yeah, we should do that as a routine.
Well, there's a letter that each new client gets from me that goes through some of those. And it plays on our TVs, but if they haven't started at the center yet, they won't be able to watch it. But we can send it to you directly, and it's my 10 tips from having gone through it, and some of them are things that were told to me before I started CARD, which made all the difference in the world. So we can get that to you. But write to me. You can always write to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com, and I'm happy to connect you with whatever you need to have. Okay. Next question has to do with this little tenty thing that I have here on the thing. Somebody wants to know, do we still have the Behavior Intervention Plan Builder?
Yes, we do. Yeah. It is the BIP Builder. It is in Skills. So if you go to skillsforautism.com and you will see the BIP Builder. I think we even have the BIP Builder on its own, don't we?
You can get the BIP Builder. If you don't want all of Skills, you can get the BIP Builder, which is fabulous. If you're looking to reduce behaviors that are a problem, that's the thing to have. Amazing. More and more schools are using it. It's remarkable.
Absolutely.
I'm moving on to the next question. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. Thank you for all your work in the field. My daughter is 13 years old, highly verbal and social, but engages in very impulsive behavior. Even though she is aware of consequences of her behavior and has expressed not wanting to change certain behaviors, it's most likely she just cannot help it. Some examples are calling other kids names in the middle of a quiet class, hurting her brother, lifting her skirt, or laughing when others are hurt. Do you have any advice on how I can teach my daughter to control this impulsivity and bridge the gap between what she knows to be appropriate behavior and what she actually engages in? I truly don't see this behavior as attention seeking, but would love to help support my daughter in her growth. And she says, thank you.
Okay, sure, great. Let me just, again, this is one of those cases where I don't know your child, but just based on what you're writing, my initial, if I was meeting with you, I would want to do a couple of little things to rule out, and then I would do a functional behavior assessment. So, but one of the things, calling out names concerns me. I don't know if your child could be anywhere on the whole realm of Tourette's, but I would want to do an evaluation to make sure she doesn't have Tourette's disorder, and that is because that has to do with calling out names or saying words that are inappropriate, and if it is out of the control of the individual. So I'd want to get that evaluated first. You'd want to see a psychiatrist or a neurologist for that. That would be one thing. Outside of that, you'd want to do a functional behavior assessment, which I don't think you can do. You need a BCBA or board certified behavior analyst to do it, because it does sound attention seeking. However, you feel like it isn't attention seeking, so really it would be important to get a professional in there. And what they will do is they'll look at each individual behavior and try to find the function. They could have different functions, by the way. Saying something, hurting the brother could have a different function than attention seeking. Lifting her skirt could be attention seeking. It isn't, attention seeking also includes things like wanting to interact. Sometimes our kids are trying to interact and they don't know how else to interact, and they think this is the way to get someone's attention because I'm supposed to be socially interacting and this is appropriate. They just don't know. So we have to find the function first. If we don't know the function, we don't know how to treat it. Like, it's just that simple. And part of that is doing the medical evaluation to make sure this is not something neurological like Tourette's. If it isn't, then your next step is the FBA, Functional Behavior Assessment, and a BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, can do that. Now, we do have an indirect functional assessment tool on our skills website, I believe. It's called
part of the BIP Builder, which we were just talking about.
Right? And it's called CARDS Indirect Functional Assessment, and it is CIFA, C-I-F-A. If you go on our Skills for Autism website, it's in the BIP plan section, and just try to do that. That answers you answer questions about these individual behaviors. Don't treat them as one. They're all different behaviors. You'll answer questions and it'll suggest some possible functions. It is not as good as a direct functional behavior assessment, obviously. Usually what we do in ABA is we'll do an indirect. If it's very obvious to everyone, that's enough. If it isn't, we'll go ahead and do a direct. If that's even unclear, then what we do is what's called an experimental FBA. And experimental is like we provoke the behavior in order to see what exactly happens. But essentially at this point, let's just see, let's start with the medical evaluation on the indirect. And then if you need help, we can try to give you BCBAs in your area, perhaps, who can do a direct FBA for you.
And you should have BCBAs accessible at school. You can
definitely, yes.
You can ask at school for them to do an FBA. You can put it in an email. I'm asking for an FBA to be done on my child in regards to whatever behavior she's doing at school, and that you would like it done by a BCBA, which stands for a Board Certified Behavior Analyst. Now, for the CIFA and the Behavior Plan Intervention Builder, you can go to skillsforautism.com, and it's FOR, not the number 4. Or you can call 877-975-4559. And you can tell them, I'm just interested in the behavior intervention plan because I just want the CIFA.
Yeah.
Or you can ask for, a free trial of the whole thing, whichever you want to do, but that is available.
And to let you know why we're advising this, the reason is that in changing behavior, you obviously need to know what the cause is. So if someone is doing a particular challenging behavior because they want attention, as opposed to, let's say, they want to escape a situation, the treatment is completely different for those two things, right? So it's really, really important, because you're not going to be able to treat each of these behaviors without knowing why she's doing it. So the function is the why. And so it becomes very important. Now, just start with that, and then you can always write back in. But generally speaking, if you get a behavior analyst, the BCBA, involved, they'll then teach you how to do the treatment once they know the function.
As parents, I just want to say that often we just want to get to the treatment. Can you just treat my child?
Right.
The thing that I always say to parents is, if something breaks in your car, you don't just take it to the mechanic and say, I don't want you to look at it, I don't want you to test drive it, I just want you to start ripping things out and fixing them, because it would be expensive and dangerous. Right? Same thing with our kids. So they have to test drive and see what's going on, which that's that functional behavior assessment, figuring out what's going on before you start working on something.
Right,
We
exactly.
do it with our cars, we understand it with our cars, so we just need to understand that with our kids. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we've got two questions that I especially want to answer. One that's just come in from India about sleep and puberty. We're going to love that, right? And then one about, we've got a desperate parent whose child exposed himself to somebody. So we're going to talk about that. It'll be a tough little conversation, but we're going to have it after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. It's January and a whole new year has gone by. To commemorate that, Autism Live and Smarty have decided to give you a template to make your very own time capsule. The materials you'll be needing are glue, a jar, photos, keepsakes, pen, and a template you can print from facebook.com/autismlive. Here's the template that I printed out from our Facebook page. Depending on the skill of your child, they can do this independently, or you're going to help them fill out all the questions. Once you have finished filling out the time capsule sheet, I've left two spaces on the top, one for a school photo, one for a family photo. Feel free to glue an image there. Now that I've glued the photos onto my sheet, now I'm going to grab my jar and start filling it up with all the things I would want to remember from the year that just passed. I would say include photos, mementos, toys, things that are going to be really important to you at this time and moment that you'll be excited to see later in the future. Once you're done filling up your jar with all the things that were important to you for the year 2013, you're going to want to seal it up. And it's up to you for how long you want to keep it locked up. Time capsules are a great way to remember where you have been and where you're going. So I hope you really enjoy this activity, and until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. I mentioned that we are going to take a couple of questions. First one that came in online, then one from YouTube. We got lots of things to do here. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she's answering your questions. It's called Ask Dr. Doreen. So from India, hello, Dr. Doreen and Mrs. Shannon. Happy New Year. Thank you. This is from India. Your show keeps me going. My question is, do sleep issues reemerge during puberty? My daughter used to sleep through the night after having some issues before her early intervention, but now that she's 8 years old, from the past few months, her sleep is disturbed, and thank you.
Oh. Yeah, it could be puberty related, although 8 is pretty young.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it is. Lots of different things could be causing sleep problems. That could be environmental sounds that you're not aware of, and she is, because I don't know if your daughter has sound sensitivity. So you want to make sure there's nothing going on in the environment. Here in the US, I know a lot of times parents will come and tell me, my daughter wakes up My son wakes up every night at like 3 a.m. I'm like, well, what else is going on? And parents will look and be like, something as simple as like the sprinklers go on, and that disturbs our kids. So first thing is make sure, maybe do a recording of her room, like just put a cassette player or something and record her room so that you can see that. That's one thing. The second thing is make sure when she wakes up, I'm just throwing out ideas now, she doesn't have access to food or drink. If we, other than water, water's fine, but if you go to eat something or drink something sugary or with taste, you're training your stomach to wake you up at that time. So that is not a good thing. The other things that come to mind are make sure there's no medical issues going on, obviously. Sometimes our kids who start seizures at night. So that is very important. And seizures do actually, not to scare you by any means, but seizures start to appear in around 8, 9, 10, and a little bit later even. So you want to make sure that she's not having any kind of, could be subclinical, so you know, nothing major, but her brain is seizing. And the only way to know that is to do a sleep EEG, which I don't know if you have access to in India. So that's the other thing. And then diet. Diet, of course, also influences our sleep patterns, definitely. So you want to make sure there's nothing new in her diet. Now, the easiest thing to do is to have a lot of either phones or what are they called? Apple Watches. Or these Fitbits, these things that measure, there's a lot of apps out there now that measure lots of things about your sleep. So it's actually kind of cool. You can even, on a phone, you can put the phone like right under her mattress and it'll feel the various times she wakes up, the duration that she's up, how much movement is happening. So that will start giving you some information right away. So let's gather some info first, and then what's really important is what you do when she wakes up. Because if you come into the room, if she has access to you, if she comes to you, if she has food, if she does anything other than stay in her bed and try to go back to sleep, we are now breaking her pattern and like causing her to have sleep issues. So be very cautious with that. Let us know more.
Thank you so much. And I want to get to this question because I know we've got a parent who's been very concerned. I just learned my adult son who lives with us exposed himself to a female worker. It was over 3 months before we were told this. Of course, our questions to him were met with stares. He did eventually admit to me that it's true. I don't know what to do. Did someone tell him to do this, or did someone do it to him? Has he done this before? We need help. And she goes on to say that she lives in New York, and that they are worried and nervous, and is there a way to get help? And they are close to an office that we have in upstate New York.
Right, and I see that she's a nurse, so that's great. It's a nurse
is that what that means?
Nurse practitioner.
Ah, okay.
So not just a nurse, but a nurse practitioner, so like very close to a physician. So here's what, I can understand that you're concerned. So what I would say is that, first of all, don't be scared and don't think a million different things. A lot of times our kids, our adults kids, or our kids who are reaching adulthood will tend to do these things not because someone has, let's say, molested them or done something inappropriate to them or demonstrated something inappropriate or has in any way done anything of that nature, but more because they themselves don't realize what they're doing is not appropriate. So from his perspective, he could have just been making a move, like really just trying to do something to a female worker. Maybe he finds, this is puberty. Our boys are starting to like really want to be with a female. He'll see a female, it might arouse him, and then he doesn't know anything about arousal, self-containment, self-regulation, not doing certain things to people, not doing it in public, how it makes them feel. Not all of that might be out of his realm of reality. I don't know your son, so I don't know his level of functioning, but these are assumptions I'm making. So what I would suggest, first of all, is don't panic at all about this. You should. We do have an office near you. Our office is very close to you. If you go on our website and look, you will see the location of the office that is very, very close to you. We have really good staff in that office, particularly one of my senior supervisors, Denise Ryan. Hey, Denise. Is there, and she is fantastic with adults, and she is fantastic with these types of issues. Denise is a board certified behavior analyst. Of course, currently she is involved with a lot of our continuing education for all of our staff at CARD. Denise is someone who's been at CARD over 20 years. So, but I think she also still sees patients. If not, she can definitely give you guidance for sure. So I would call that office and speak with Denise. You'll see the office that's closest to you. I just don't want to name it because I don't want, I don't want to say too much. Yeah. I want to keep your privacy. And all I can say right now is that you need to just find out a little bit more. If it is correct that your child just was trying to make a move, then it's as simple as teaching him what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. A lot of our kids at this age start to do behavior that a female would classify as stalking or as very inappropriate. And we just have to teach him self-regulation, what things are appropriate, that he cannot, and there's a lot of options. And, depending on his age and depending on how much of a problem this is, there are also medical treatments that can help you as well.
Okay. And I think it's important. I mean, we all get so squeamish about this, the idea that, oh my gosh, my child did this. But I think we've seen in the news that this is, that there are a certain amount of this. There are grown men who are not on the spectrum that don't know what the rules are. Yes, so how important is it for us all as parents to make sure that we tell our young boys and our young girls, here are the rules. This is what's acceptable. This is what isn't acceptable. No one should do this to you, and you should not do this to anybody else. Absolutely. We can't assume, but these things can be taught.
They definitely can be taught, and as a parent, I guess I would have multiple fears. Thanks for pointing that out, Shannon, and I think you probably have multiple. One is like, oh my God, like what did my child do to someone else? Yeah. And then it's, of course, oh my God, what can someone else do to my child? Yeah. And
where did they get the idea from it? Like what she's talking about, where do they even get the idea?
Yeah, exactly. But like, don't panic, because this is not uncommon. And, as Shannon said, there are rules. We can teach the rules. Our kids generally do very well with the rules once they're taught, our adults. But, and hopefully this female worker is understanding of it. Obviously, if you didn't hear about it in 3 months, then, they're not angry or something. And it is one of those things that comes with autism. Autism, sometimes our kids, as you know, the biggest deficit in autism is perspective taking, theory of mind. And if you're unable to see other people's perspectives, you will do something like this, because it is not, you don't know societal rules, and you don't know that you're maybe causing someone else to be shocked. So, I can't blame the individual who did it, because Absolutely. They just don't know any better.
Absolutely. I want to take a question that came in on our YouTube channel. I think you say that Shay wants to know, hi, how much speech therapy should a child in school receive if he only talks to express his needs and wants and does not initiate a conversation? And she says, thank you.
Sure. So my general belief, there's, speech, generally speaking, schools are not going to provide, or just the paradigm of speech therapy, you never really get intensive speech therapy. Obviously, the more speech, the better. So at this point, I would say, 5 hours a week. That would be considered intensive speech therapy. But really what I think you're doing, you're going past speech a little bit. You're going into like advanced language areas, language and communication. So you might want to be doing speech, like 3 to 5 hours of speech, and add a full ABA program, because your ABA program will really be focused on teaching social communication, which is one of the first signs of autism. So you might want to add, by talking to your school, I think the parent said school, you need to get an ABA program added and not just speech. Speech alone is not going to be enough.
And boy, how much do I appreciate you saying that? Because a lot of times school is going to tell you, oh, here's what we have. We have speech and OT for you, and that's our program for autism. And we as parents, we don't, how would we know that that's not enough, right? If nobody is telling us, so I'm glad, you know, because everybody needs to know that's just what they're offering. That's not enough.
And in California, Shannon, nowadays, you know, like you and I are old timers, and like there, you know, schools.
Who you call an old timer? Absolutely.
You know, the old days, even like 20 years ago, you look at it, or even 10 years, 15 years ago, schools did not have good programs here in California, but they are now improving in California. There are like much, much better programs. However, outside of California, the world is still very, very far behind this. So when I go to other states, particularly the South, the East, like and Midwest, sometimes you see things that are just like reminiscent of 25 years ago in California. And so the parents out there are going through some of the same issues, exactly as you said. Forget about, hey, I'm going to give you speech and OT. Sometimes it's just like, I have nothing to give you. So, or don't know even autism has the capability of improving. So, yeah.
It's frightening. Gail has written in on YouTube and wants to know, are there any medications for self-harming?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a very good question. Yes, there are. To answer your question, there are medications. They are not particularly for self-harming. They are medications that will generally stop any kind of excessive behavior. So that will include maybe some other behaviors that are not bad, but could be classified as excessive. So let me explain what I'm talking about. So for instance, Risperdal is a medication that is approved for autism. And what it does is it generally calms. Okay, so if you're calming someone, that means they will self-harm less. But they will also be less motivated, and they will probably be a little bit more lethargic and a little bit more numb, to put it that way. So, and unfortunately, all medications are that way. They don't focus on just one particular area. For instance, the medications we give to individuals with ADHD, they are speed, it's amphetamines. So what they do is, as a whole, if it works, they just reduce the hyperactivity, which is a weird concept, but that's how it happens. You actually give someone speed and it reduces hyperactivity. As a whole, that means your brain slows down too. So with Risperdal, which would be the medication in this case, you are calming the individual. Sometimes parents like that because the individual is completely out of control. Sometimes they don't like it because it's causing the individual to act kind of like a zombie, and parents don't like that. So sometimes it's better to do a functional assessment, again, to determine what is causing the self-harm. Why is the person self-harming? They don't say any more than just self-harm. So usually, from my experience, now in the old days, like 30, 40 years ago, we used to, we didn't know anything about the functions of various behaviors. And a lot of people still today will classify self-injurious behavior or self-harm under this category of repetitive stereotypical behaviors that we know nothing about. Now, and that's the second area of symptomology for autism. So autism has to do with two areas of symptoms: delays in social communication and too many of these repetitive self-stimulatory kind of behaviors or excessive behaviors, one of which could be self-harming. From my perspective, when you look at self-harm, the individual is actually trying to communicate something, and usually self-harm is one of a few different things, and I'll tell you, I don't know which applies to your child, but sometimes it's frustration. So the child is just frustrated, and the way they let everybody know is by hitting themselves. I don't know if you've ever, many people, typically developing people, if they get to a certain level of frustration, they will self-harm. It's just that simple. cutting, which teenagers do, is one form of self-harm. Now, self-harm could be frustration. It could be a sensory need. So, for instance, the individual wants to feel something, and they do this because their senses, normally they're not feeling enough, and so this gives them some sort of sensory input that we all crave. It could be that. It could be pain related. Sometimes our kids have major headaches and we don't know about it. So they start to like hit their head against the wall because it actually detracts from the internal pain that they're experiencing. So there's all these different things, and unfortunately, we don't know enough about self-harm. So these are the things I would do if it was my child. I would do a functional behavior assessment. You need a behavior analyst to do that so that they can identify if there's anything that is somehow rewarding this behavior. So for instance, is the child getting a lot of attention every time they do self-harm? The quickest test for that is, does your child do self-harm behavior when no one else is around? Okay, do they do that? Another test is, do they only do self-harm when a demand is placed? Because generally speaking, if I place a demand on a child and they hit their head, most people will back off. And the child learns that and says, oh, this is a good way to get people to back off and leave me alone. So is it attention seeking? Is it a process of escape so that it allows the child to escape a demand? These are important functions that need to be identified. Is it due to pain? It has to be figured out. Is it due to frustration from something else? These are very important things. Or is it just sensory? Once you identify that, then you can identify how to deal with it, how to treat it. If you don't want to do all that, then probably the way to go is to do Risperdal, because it will reduce some of the self-harm, but as I said, it'll also produce kind of this overall, I don't want to call it zombie, but overall lethargic type of change in the child. So I would suggest doing the behavioral modifications first, the functional behavior assessment, followed by behavioral interventions. And if all of that doesn't work, then you should be looking at meds.
Okay. I want to take a break, but we had a question from Laura D. that came in that I think might be better suited for Bonnie Yates tomorrow. Okay. Bonnie Yates is a special education attorney. She wrote in, it's in reference to something you said a few minutes ago. She said, how can you get the school to add ABA at school? She says, I know my daughter needs it and would benefit, but when I tried requesting it, they said she doesn't, and what the teacher has in place is enough for now. So I can put that with Bonnie tomorrow, or do you want to say anything about
definitely. Please do throw it at Bonnie as well. Bonnie's very, very knowledgeable in that world. I would say you need to see and Bonnie will probably say the same thing, is that you'll need to see an expert, which at this point should be a board-certified behavior analyst who will do an evaluation and will write a recommendation. You can also see a psychologist. There are individuals who are very good at doing, or you can see a developmental pediatrician as well, but someone who will do a bunch of assessments on your child and write a report indicating what they actually need. If ABA is in their recommendations, then the school is more likely to provide it.
Another trick, if you don't want to go the full route with a lawyer, a lot of parents end up having to do that. But a quick litmus test to see whether they're going to cave or not is to go back to them and request, if you already have an IEP because you already have a diagnosis, request that they show you the data on what they're doing and how effective it is. They don't have data. They don't.
No, it's true. They don't have data.
And if they see that you're asking for data and that you're going to push it that way and they think you're going to go to a lawyer, they might cough up some ABA for you before you get to a lawyer.
Yeah, but also I just want to give you a little bit more clarity on this because you're writing it. So the concept goes back to the Free and Appropriate Education Act. The concept is if the school district cannot offer your child what is appropriate, they need to pay someone else to do it. Okay, so that's where all this comes from. So before you get into any kind of litigious situation with your school, document everything. So videotape your child's problems at school, the language, document it. Part of going to see a psychologist, let's say, who does testing is that documentation, is so that you have proof that your child is behind on certain areas. And the entire world knows that if they are behind and they have a diagnosis of ASD, the way to catch them up is ABA. And that speech will, there's nothing, no literature that says a couple hours of speech is going to catch your child up. There's thousands of documents and articles. That's why it is approved. That's why ABA is insurance funded. Now, if your school, what you're going for is trying to get your school to realize what they have is not appropriate and enough, and that they need to pay for a program. The other alternative is to get them to pay for, like, let's say 10 hours, 15 hours in school, and also get your insurance coverage. Your insurance coverage will cover your child after school. So then you will get a school program and an after school program, which is the best thing for your child.
Yeah. And now is the best time ever for this argument, because in May of last year, the Supreme Court came in with a decision about a child who was at a school where they were saying, look, we're doing enough, and they weren't doing an ABA program. The parents had the means to take him out of school, send him to another school where he got good help, and the child progressed so much that they were able to successfully get all the way to the, they went to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit said, no, it's enough. Schools just have to do the bare minimum. They call it in de minimis.
Right.
That's the phrase to use with your school, because then it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said last year, de minimis is not enough. They haven't defined what is enough.
Right.
That's going to come in future cases. But if you go in and say to the school, and if you want, I've done this before for other families, we have a packet of impact studies that show how effective ABA is, that I can email those to you. And if you go in and say, hey, the Supreme Court said de minimis is not enough, so, you know, they'll know that you mean business and you know what you're talking about. If you say de minimis, they're going to go, what? But we all need to be aware of that. De minimis is not the law of the land. It was for a couple of years, but it is no longer by the Supreme Court. So there you have it. Okay.
We're taking a break.
Well, we were going to take a break, but now we've only got a few minutes. So
Keep
should we
going.
press on?
Oh, of course, of course.
Okay. Are you okay?
I'm totally fine.
Okay. But I'm not seeing them. For some reason, it's not working today, Samantha. She's saying try to do some of the Facebook ones. And I didn't get to see them. They're not coming up. It's showing me who's, but if you can email them to me, great. Okay, I will say that we've had many questions that have come in the last week, which is so funny to me, that people are saying, is there a way to search by topic for the videos that we've sent in? And you've asked this in many different ways. Right, we're about to get a retool on the website, and then you will be able to, on so many things, it's going to blow your mind. But right now, you can do that from Ask Dr. Doreen. It is not on our website. It lives on the CARD website. So what I want to ask you to do, all you have to do is go into Google or whatever your search engine is and put in Ask Dr. Doreen, and what will come up, one of the first things, is the page on CARD where you can search by topic. So it'll say potty training, and then it will say what the questions were. And if you click on the question, it takes you directly to that question, you know, and on YouTube. You no longer have to search through hours and hours and hours to find the question that you want. Somebody had written in and said, you know, please, I love the show, but, you know, finding something is really hard. And we had come to the same conclusion. It just has taken us a little while. And all of that will get moved to our new website, which I think is coming to you within a month. I don't want to promise, but really, really exciting. So somebody had written in and said, how can I search through past shows for help with a topic? Have a 9-year-old with autism who's a perfectionist, and we have answered those kinds of questions.
Definitely.
I knew issue at school. She is homeschooling now, and I'm seeing a big problem that this is for her. Any quick advice for a perfectionist?
There's a lot of different programs when you go into skills, and you should be looking, I believe, in the executive functioning area, because you're going to be looking at the flexibility lessons. These are specifically for our kids who are perfectionists. They're kind of obsessive compulsive about certain things. And generally speaking, there's two things about that. One is that you'll teach them ways to be flexible through the lessons that we have there, and there's lots of them. They'll learn to cope with things being imperfect. But at the same time, you need to realize that perfectionism and control comes from a certain level of anxiety. Might not be current anxiety, it could be old anxiety that kind of at some point led the individual to learn that if I am in an unstable scenario, I must be in control of everything and keep everything tidy and et cetera, and that has just stayed with them. A certain level of anxiety, don't forget, is very good. It's very adaptive, but too much perfectionism tends to make people freeze. And so that's where you go to the flexibility lessons.
Okay. Now all questions have come in from Facebook because they were stuck on mine, but I also want to say the mom wrote in and said, thank you so much for answering my question about the sleep. She said, I share a bed with my daughter. I did not have a choice initially since we had just one room. She doesn't have access to food or drink. She says, I will look into the sound and seizures, but she wants to know, do subclinical seizures lead to some neurological deficits or regression?
They could. They're not gonna. They could put. It's not serious regression, so don't worry. But it is. We do have kids where they are learning certain things and they will have a seizure, and then all the stuff they learned that day is now gone. So it does happen. So you need to look into that, definitely. But ideally, I don't know if it's possible for you now or not, but ideally getting her into her own space at night would be very important.
Absolutely. I'm going to rapid fire like 5 questions at you. Rafaya wants to know, my daughter is 4 doing ABA. We use cable or string as a reinforcement. She is learning, but her stimming with thread has not reduced. She wants it out of therapy also. She is a sensory seeker. She shakes the thread and sees it moving. Please help.
Yep. If it's very obsessive, I would probably not use it as a reinforcer, although the concept is there. The concept is correct. That's the Premack principle. What you're doing is fine. But it probably would be a good idea to start trying to reduce it to very limited time frames. So what we've done in the past is, like, you'll get a baseline of like how often she's getting it now, right now, even though you're controlling it, and start to just reduce that so that essentially, let's say she would get it, ideally, she would allow to be playing with string only in her room alone, let's say for 10 minutes every 2 hours or something like that. So it's kind of like going to the restroom. So it becomes something that she's allowed, but it's an extremely thin schedule. So it's very, very limited to certain time frames in the day. Short of that, that's one of the hardest self-stimulatory behaviors to get rid of. You need to also watch for her muscles. A lot of our kids who do this, after a while, they have a lot of aches and pains in these particular muscles because it strengthens those muscles pretty significantly. Perhaps try to teach her something adaptive that she can do to replace that, like painting. Strokes of painting might help her reduce that, like having a paintbrush instead of, and it detracts, right, from just doing this in the air to doing it on canvas. You can try to turn it into something. Of course, this is one, as you know, one of our little guys used to do that, and he became a very, very famous drummer. So if you can try to replace it with something that's a little bit more adaptive, that's the way to go, because then the individual is getting all of the sensory need they need through something very functional and adaptive.
Okay. I can't choose between, but
Can I also address this one? This is an adult themselves.
Yes.
And they're saying
I was going to go to that one.
Yeah, I read it and I was like, I got to address this one. And the answer is yes. Your sister-in-law can definitely help.
Should I read the whole question?
Please.
Can my sister-in-law, who is not qualified to work with Asperger's adults, but yet she is a high school French teacher here in the state of Idaho, be allowed to work with me in skills? skills that I have never gotten as an Asperger adult because my parent refused to get me tested growing up, and they refused to admit that there was a problem. They always thought that I was the problem. The only services I'm getting now as an Asperger's adult are independent living skills, and I do work and live on my own, but the care I am receiving is inadequate, which my mom won't admit. I think how lovely that you are advocating for yourself and wrote in, and I love that you've already said yes.
I just love it. I read your paragraph and I was like, oh my gosh, I love you.
Yes.
Good for you. And yes, definitely. And what I would suggest for your sister-in-law is to do two things if she's interested. To first of all get some basic training, and she can do that through the Institute for Behavior Training, IBT. And so she just needs to go on there, and I would have her look through. She doesn't really need to go through the professional path. I would suggest she goes through either the parent path or the teacher path and learn sort of the basics. And then while doing that, also, I think you need to get on skills. And skills for autism, and then skills, of course, you yourself would go through and look at the very, very high areas of skills. In fact, you're an adult, so you could look at skills living, which is for adults. And I would go there. Actually, if you go to skills living, then start just answering all those questions. And you can see the areas where you need help, or you can select. And then those are written out in a way that your sister-in-law can help you with those as well. But skills is the content, IBT is the process, the procedures. And just go that path, and good for you. And if money becomes an issue, write into Shannon and we'll see what we can do to help you with some grants to get those two things going.
There you go. I'm so sorry to Grace, the teacher who's written in. We're going to get to your question next week at the top, I swear. Okay, we are out of time and we have to let Dr. Grampiche go, and I know that's sad for all of us. But thank you so much for being here.
It's
it makes
a pleasure.
such a difference. I so appreciate it.
I'm here the next several Wednesdays.
Okay, we're thrilled about that.
Are you excited? Wow. Can I have a kiss? Thank you. He did tell Miss Miriam yesterday that he said poopies. She came and got me. We looked, there was none there, so we thought he was telling us stories. And 2 minutes later, there were.
Oh.
Wow. You did it, didn't you?
That's exciting.
She's Away's a new therapist and is having an overlap with Jessica. She will be doing fieldwork training until she is ready to independently work with a child. In order for She's Away to work independently, she must first pass a theory-based test, which is her knowledge of autism, and then second, she must pass a field evaluation, which is an overlap where she applies what she has learned.
So I want to do actions, then it looks like they're just doing maintenance right now.
Do the ones that he already has mastered.
And that's in a separate bag, okay.
Yeah. And then you would just be asking, what is the little boy doing? The boy's playing.
Okay.
It should be his answer.
Okay.
Jack Riley, my name is She's Away.
Say, hi, she's away.
Hi, she's away.
Oh, very good. Give me a high five.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so Jack, what would you like to do after we do a program? Would you like bubbles?
Puzzle.
Oh, puzzle? Okay, we can do puzzle.
Since we're using the puzzle as a reinforcer, don't give it to him
Oh,
yet
right.
until you do the program. Because now he's like, well, I already got
Right,
the puzzle,
yeah,
so
why should I?
Why should
Okay.
it work?
What is the boy doing?
He's sitting.
Yeah! Oh, good! One sticker. What is this man doing?
What's it to?
Yeah! What is she doing?
He's kicking.
Yeah!
Hey, good job.
What is he doing?
He's Spider positive.
Yeah, that was great.
So bring up some other ones too.
He's Spider.
What are they doing?
She's hugging.
Yes, they're hugging.
And are you taking data as you're going along?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is he doing?
He's sleeping.
Oh, yeah, you're so good.
He's sleeping.
So make sure you write the
The
stimuli,
stimuli,
too.
yeah. It's like, I don't want to take too much time. Should I just be quick with it?
Yeah.
Okay. What are they doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, they're playing. Good job, Jack.
Playing a box.
They are playing blocks. You're so smart.
What is he doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, another one.
He's playing blocks.
He's playing blocks, too.
He's playing a car.
He's playing cars. That's right.
What is she doing?
He's playing.
Yeah. What are they doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, you finished. Good job, Jack Riley. Give me high fives. Can you do high fives? Yes. Okay. You ready to play with your puzzle? Okay, here.
Where's the cow? Where's the cow? Oh, good job. What does he say? What does the cow say? What is he? Moo. Hi, monkey. You want a pillow sandwich? Okay, go get me the pillows. Will you show Shizu how we do your pillow sandwich?
I want to see this pillow sandwich.
Okay, ready? One. Hold on. Can you let go? Hold on. 1, 2, 3. Ah! Squash! Pillow sandwich. It's a pillow sandwich. And here we get there's a lot of opportunities for him to ask for things. Like if he wants more of jumping, more of pillow sandwiches. It's called man training.
Oh.
So what we're doing is we're giving him frames because he knows that I want and give me. But we're trying to teach him a new frame, which is can I have something. So how we prompt him is something that he really, really wants, like pillow sandwiches or having you pick him up or something.
Okay.
And I've been prompting him with a partial verbal with just the cup, and he knows to say, "Can I?"
Okay.
So, I mean, we could track that later, but this is just one of the opportunities that you can use to to do that program. Do you want more? Then you say, "Can I?" Yes, you can have pillow sandwich. Come here. Crash! Ask her. Say, "Can."
Okay,
Yes.
come here. Let me see you. Oh! Oh, how fun is that?
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism. I'm Nancy Allspot Jackson.
I'm Shannon Penrod, and I'm happy to be here with you,
Happy
my
to be here with you too, darling.
I'm unplugging my ugly cord. I was going to try to be like, fancy about it, but I was like, no, they can see. I'm unplugging the cord. Thrilled to be here with you. You guys had a huge event on Saturday.
We did. We had our Active Day for Military Families Run and Festival, and it was really great.
I heard it was really great.
We got pictures. Samantha was there.
Do you want to show those pictures now?
Oh, here's some pictures. There's Wyatt. There's my son.
Look at how handsome he is.
Yeah, with me with Paul Rikus, who's at the Active Day. We've got some people here crossing the finish line, and it was just a great event. Beautiful weather as always in San Diego, it seems to be, and Tom Leahy from One Hope, our title sponsor. People enjoying the beer and wine garden, which they always do.
Really, it's one of my favorite events during the year, and I didn't get to go this year, and I was really bummed about it, but I heard it was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, you went to another event.
I was at the We Rock the Spectrum Rock Walk and Resource Fair, and that was a beautiful event, and I don't have pictures. We did a live stream from there, so I didn't have time to take pictures, but it was beautiful.
Good.
It was in Woodley Park here in Van Nuys. And it's just always wonderful to get out in the sunshine with other autism families and participate in the conversation and the hope. We have Yes, we have stuff that's falling off
Our
the wall
ceiling,
here.
yeah.
I reapplied.
You can't see it on camera.
Good. I thought you could.
No.
I reapplied a piece of our sound foam the other day, and it is now it's swinging and hanging, because it's that kind of
I
day.
wondered what that
it's
noise
that kind of
was.
day. You know,
Yeah.
that's the wall falling down around us. Eventually, it'll be on your lap.
Okay.
It's foam, so it's not going to hurt anybody. Nobody's in danger. All right. So shall we talk a little about in the news?
Yeah,
and
in
what
the
we have
news.
going on. Mine
There's-
is completely all jacked
Okay,
up.
yours is all
but there it
different.
is.
Let's see, there's...
No, but
there-
let's start with the Hans Asperger. This
Yeah,
was
this-
a big story the other day, and then all of a sudden it just kind of got slipped under the rug
Yeah.
and it kind of went away.
And Washington Post had a pretty extensive article about it.
Yeah. And there are allegations suggesting that he took 35 children and that appeared to be children on the spectrum or kids with different needs or sensory needs, and shipped them off for the Nazis to, what we don't know
Exterminate.
is, yes, what we don't know is what his intentions were. What we don't know is ultimately, what exactly happened to them. But it doesn't seem to have been a considerate thing to do.
No.
I mean, I don't know. I think we all can say, well, if I had been in that situation, whatever, but this does not seem like the hand of somebody who was caring,
No.
concerned, or somebody who is worthy of having an entire group of people on the autism spectrum
Named after them.
them. That's how I felt about it. How did you feel about it?
I felt the same way. It's clear that he sent some of these children away for permanent placements to, it's called Am Spiegelgrund, the notorious reformatory and psychiatric clinic where nearly 800 children were killed under Nazi rule. He concluded that permanent placement for some of these children was absolutely necessary.
And you go, so did he know that they were exterminating kids? I don't think we know that for sure yet. And we have to remember that back in the day, the woman who diagnosed my son, on the day that she diagnosed him, it was her first day of retirement. She had worked in the field of autism
Was that at
for
Regional
50
Center?
years. It was at Kaiser.
Oh, it was at Kaiser.
It was at Kaiser, and it was Dr. Nancy Brill. I'm just putting it out there. It was her first day of retirement. She said to me, "Your child is the first person I'm diagnosing in my retirement." She said, "I have worked in this field for 50 years." And this woman had absolutely no bedside manner whatsoever, right? None. But she said to me, when I said, what am I supposed to do? And she said, well, take him home and enjoy him. That was her big advice of what to do. And her other thing was, you should be happy, because the fact that we're diagnosing him, what we've learned in the last 5 years of autism is more than what we learned in the previous 50 years. And she said, and if this were the first day of my practice when I started practicing, I would have told you to put him in a home, walk away, and forget that you had him. And my pudgy little elf was there, and I pulled him to me, like that protective instinct, and I said, "This baby?" And she said, "Oh yes, on the first day, that's what I would have told you." But we don't do that anymore. And I remember thinking, God, aren't I glad that I'm born in the time that I'm born in?
Right.
Because and there was no compunction about it. Yep, that's what we used to do. We used to say to parents, put them in a home, walk away, forget about them.
Wow.
Horrifying,
Yeah,
right?
horrifying.
Well, the woman who wrote Valley of the Dolls, that was her story, that she had a child who was on the autism
Jacqueline
spectrum.
Suzanne? Valley of the Dolls.
Is that Fear of Flying, or is that who? I don't, but Valley of the Dolls, the author of Valley of the Dolls, her child was on the autism spectrum, and they said, you must place him and you must walk away and you must go do something else. And she really wrote that book to take her mind off of it.
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
There's a movie, Bette Midler plays her.
Okay.
I'm trying to think who plays her husband. But in any case, this is what people did. They sent these kids away. It churns my stomach. It's unacceptable. And especially to send them away to someplace where you had to have some awareness of what the Nazis were about, right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I would think. In any case, I think that, I was especially glad this week that Asperger's is no longer an actual designation, but I know a lot of people who identify themselves as having Asperger's. And I wonder if this will change their mind about that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Interesting, very interesting and upsetting.
Then there was an article in Neurological Health. No, in Spectrum.
Okay, the diabetes one.
Yeah, no, this is the mutations.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
neurological health.
Okay. Some mutations tied to autism may be passed down from fathers. And that apparently goes against previous studies that suggest mutations are only inherited from mothers.
You know, and it's always I wanted to include this because I think that people were interested in this. I want you to know when and where to find it. But it becomes a little bit of the finger point thing, right? And it doesn't feel good. I mean, when the studies come out and it's something that points to things that I go, oh, that's me.
Right.
You know, I don't like it. I know when we were pregnant and waiting to have the baby, I was so concerned about, was my child going to have Down syndrome? Because that's all they told me because of my advanced age, that we were really looking at that. And I remember saying, but it's okay that dad is older too? And they were like, yep, there's nothing. And of course, out of Israel, 2 years later, came out the study saying that an older dad, genetically, you're more likely to have a child who's on the autism spectrum. So I hate these studies because like, what are you going to do? They're your genes.
Exactly.
But I think it's important that we start, these studies will eventually tell us what we need to know about genetics. And maybe this evens it a little bit more so that everybody feels a little bit of the pain, you know, but that's what it is. It feels like pain to me. And then we have information about diabetes. And I don't have that one with me because I'm not good at copying today.
Autism does not affect metabolic control in type 1 diabetes. So they tested to see if there was any difference between those with autism with type 1 diabetes and those without, and it does not affect metabolic control.
And isn't that a great thing to at least think that we know? Because there are kiddos who are on the spectrum and who also have diabetes. That study, and is that the one that's, do you know which article, which place that came from? Does it tell you on your thing? Because it also goes on to talk about the rates of kids and how they use their insulin and how they are about taking their measurements, and gives statistics on that as well. That's interesting if you have a child who's on the autism spectrum. I can't remember if that was...
I don't see where this is from.
Okay. Well, we'll see if we can't figure that out for you guys and get back to you on that. But in any case, we've got some fabulous guests today.
We do.
Absolutely wonderful. We've got Tori Ridgway, who's going to be here with his mom, Vanessa. And what a fine, upstanding young person Tori is, that a scout,
an Eagle Scout,
award-winning scout. So I hope that we can talk a little bit about how scouting helps individuals who are on the autism spectrum and hear what he's doing now. And then Lois Jean Brady is going to be with us from Eye Therapy. We've had her before on the show.
And she's going to be with us with her partner, I believe, as well.
That's what I was not entirely sure about, but they're going to talk about, I always say to them, when you have something to share with us, something new to unveil, to send it our way, and they have something new to talk with us about. So we're very excited about that. That's all coming up after these messages. Stick with us.
Stay with us.
Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself, how on earth can I afford ABA therapy for my child? Well, the short answer is you can't. No one can. It's really expensive and it's overwhelming to most families. But the story doesn't end there, fortunately. The first thing that I want you to think about is tapping insurance resources. So many insurance companies are paying for ABA therapy right now. So that's your first best bet. Make sure and see if your insurance company is providing benefits for ABA therapy and check back often. Now, if you see that you don't have insurance right now for ABA, don't panic. There are still other resources. The next place to go is to your local support groups and ask them what local resources there are. That's a great place to ask for information because often states and even counties have support for ABA. And then beyond that, you might consider applying for grants. There are many fabulous grants out there to help you to get support for your ABA therapy. But most important, it's absolutely essential that you get ABA services for your child. We know that that's essential for all of our children, and that you won't be able to do it on your own. So seek out those services and support groups that will help you to fund your ABA journey. It's really important to remember that all behaviors happen for a reason.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, we talked about step number 1, accept and embrace this challenge. Now we're moving on to step number 2, educate yourself. After my son Wyatt was diagnosed, I put up a sign over my home office that said Autism Central. I went to school in my home office every night after my husband and Wyatt had gone to bed because I was determined to learn everything there was about autism. That's because knowledge is power. Visit all the autism websites you can, read all the books you can, learn about all the organizations that are out there that offer free guides to help you. Some of them even offer mentors to help guide you. Find out about local support services. Find out about what educational services your child is entitled to. Get to every autism conference and seminar you can. I'll never forget the first autism conference that I went to. The first speaker was a beautiful, brilliant woman named Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet. She spoke about a therapy called Applied Behavioral Analysis, or ABA. She told about how it could improve the life of children with autism, and in some cases, recover them. Now, despite the fact that Wyatt had been diagnosed for over a year, nobody had told me about this therapy. I remember calling my husband on the cell phone and saying, "Honey, I met the woman who is going to help improve Wyatt's life." And I'm happy to say that 8 years later, that's true. Are you feeling a little overwhelmed by all the information that's out there? Well, you're not alone. But try different approaches for your child. Trust your gut. Just 40 short years ago, mothers were told if their child had autism that they would have to be institutionalized, and in some cases they were actually blamed for their child's autism for failing to bond with the child. That was called refrigerator mother syndrome. Well, thank goodness times have changed. So until next time, learn everything you can about autism and keep the faith.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about an allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap.
But it's full of crap and it's hard to do. We don't have time in the morning. We're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not
personality. We can't do anything about.
Yeah, can't do anything about that. So we're going to start off first with I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour, and often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flax seeds. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're gonna just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes, and the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like, don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go, pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty. It looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. But you can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
That looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, you know, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We're, of course, on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autismlive. And of course, Talkin' Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Are you looking for a way to teach speech to someone with autism? Inner Voice Autism Language and Literacy Tool communicates for those who cannot speak for themselves. It provides a model of speech production, teaches how to speak, recognize, and display emotions, and provides self-monitoring for written language. Inner Voice combined with MyScript Stylus turns written language into spoken language with the ability to express emotions. Buy now and tell your friends.
We are back now, and that trailer you just saw, we are now here with the inventors of Inner Voice. We have Lois Jean Brady, who has over 25 years of experience as a practicing speech-language pathologist, and she also holds a certification in assistive technology, and her partner Matthew Gugamos, who also is a speech-language pathologist and professional inventor and father, and he specializes in treating autism spectrum disorders. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome for having us.
Thanks for having us.
We're thrilled to have you, and you've been on the show before to talk about Inner Voice, but we always invite you to come when you've got something new that's going on, and we understand that there are new things going on. But let's start, for people who haven't seen us, talk about why would you create an app for voice when there are other ones that are out there, right?
Yes, there are. There's plenty of apps on the market. And, you know, Matthew and I both work with children with autism on a daily basis. And what we realized is, oh my gosh, these kids weren't using them. They weren't working for our kids with autism. Well, what was working? So we took all the things we knew that were working, took away the things that we knew weren't working, and we created Inner Voice specifically for kids on autism to get their attention, their engagement, and their motivation.
Which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. How is yours different, and how does it achieve that?
Well, the main thing is that it uses avatars to represent speech, or basically these avatars are made through pictures of the user. And so what that does is that it kind of replicates how all people pretty much learn to speak, which is watching other people speak. So these pictures can be a cartoon or a drawing like this, or they can be a photograph of a child like you're displaying there. And this is how, well, all human beings throughout the world learn to speak. They watch their parents speak, they imitate it, and then learn to imitate in social context. So that's basically the reason that we took that model to make natural language learning be applied to what appeals to kids on the autism spectrum using tablets, which is an evidence-based practice.
I love this, you guys, I gotta say. I mean, and the fact that it can be a cartoon, a real person, or an animal is just absolutely brilliant, because different kids respond to different things.
Right.
Can you demonstrate for us how Inner Voice can narrate social stories without confusing pronouns?
Absolutely. Matthew has a great story tell him the story about the kid on the bus, the student on the bus.
Oh, I remember he was doing something he shouldn't have, and so the social story was telling him, well, just how to be appropriate on the bus. And so when I'm reading it to him, this was about 10 years ago, this was before we had come up with the app, I'm reading it to him saying, well, when I'm on the bus and I want to, I don't know, get in other people's space, then I should keep my hands to myself. I'm thinking, well, I'm talking about myself. Does he realize I'm talking about him? Because if I'm talking about myself, he might be agreeing that I shouldn't be doing those things and not applying it to himself. So we started thinking, well, how do you get someone to really internalize a social story with the appropriate pronouns without kind of resorting to having to read them out loud and assume, and especially for kids who can't read, you know, for them to assume that we're talking about them. It gets very abstract, and sometimes we found it didn't sink in as well as you know, other approaches. So Lois has an example here.
So you take the picture of the student. In this case, we're not going to use a cartoon because the student is going to be talking about themselves. And in this case, we're just going to use the little girl that comes with the app. There's some preloaded avatars. And I pre-created this little story about her getting on the bus. So you open it up, and here she is.
I need some help, dance. I ride the school bus to school.
Okay.
I need some help, dance. I ride the school bus to school. I wait patiently.
You had something on there first.
First thing you're always going to want to do is make sure it's on auto erase. And that's just in the settings. There's always something that goes wrong every single time with any app you use. So you go to auto erase and you turn it on.
Okay.
Yeah. And now we'll hit it again.
I ride the school bus to school.
I ride the school bus to school.
I wait patiently to get on the bus.
I wait patiently to get on the bus.
I sit down and buckle my seatbelt. I follow directions from the bus driver.
So now your student is telling themselves how to act on the bus. And again, I just put that together from pictures I pulled off the web, but what you're going to want to do is go take actual pictures and really make it concrete for the student and relative for them.
I think it's so clever.
Yeah, it's very clever.
So clever. Because, you know, the fact that the avatar's mouth moves to such a clever thing. I honestly, there was one of those silly little apps with the cat that talked. And my son was so attracted to that, and that really, really helped him. If I had been able to put his head there with talking lips, oh my goodness, what an exciting thing, you guys. Okay, so it's such great technology, but why did it take more than 5 years to develop? What was that about?
Well, we had to raise money, so we wrote grants. We got grants from the National Science Foundation, Autism Speaks, New Schools Ignite, and then we created, as Matthew calls it, our duct tape version. So we part and pieced it together, then we go out and try it. We have, you know, many students on many different levels, and we try it. So this didn't work, and we threw that out, and we brought something else in, and it really took just the research and development and 5 years to finally get it to this place where not only do the students use it and are engaged, but the parents. There is no real big learning curve for parents. We tried to mirror the iOS system. So when parents open it up, it's familiar to them. There's not a lot of training that needs to be done. They can kind of do it on their own. But if they need help, there's of course manuals on the website and tutorials. But we wanted it to be easy for everyone around, and it just took that long to really tease it out, to get research, to surveys, SurveyMonkey. We did a lot of customer discovery, and we're finally at a place where, oh my gosh, I think this is it.
So is this it then? This is the final version?
Yeah, we'll keep moving and moving and moving. Is our idea is, why should our students that we work with use technology that was made 10 years ago? Now, when I got in the field, all my kids had old technology. They're using the old things that everyone was already done with. Our idea is to take, well, what is emerging right now? Let's put it into our app, and let's be the leaders in technology rather than having special needs students always be the followers. So we're always going and watching to the CES in Las Vegas every year. What's new? What's coming up? And how do we get our kids using it first?
I love it.
So no, this is not the end. This is just a place where we're happy right now.
Okay. I like that.
And we're going to sit here a minute and, yeah,
and bask in the wonderfulness.
Right.
But where do we get it? How do we get it? What does it cost? All of that good information.
It's on the Apple App Store, so you get it like you get any other app. It's currently a one-time price of $19.99, which again is only a fraction of what some of the other apps are on the market, if you're familiar. But again, we did get lots of grants from the government and private industries, and we were able, that was one of the pain points for parents is, I want to get something for my child, I can't afford it.
So we've lowered it to that price for Autism Awareness Month. So we're trying to keep it at a low price just to let people learn about it and to try it, and get more people the opportunity to put it on their devices so that they can see how it works for them.
Great.
And there also is research. This is evidence-based. Talk a little bit about the research for us.
Well, we've got a kind of several layers of research we did with it. I mean, so the first is through our, we received a National Science Foundation grant through SBIR. So it's a form of seed funding through the government to apply research into technology that consumers can use. And so what we did is we studied actually something called, we called it synthesized emotional communication. So we wanted to figure out what components have to be part of an exchange between a sender and a receiver. That's what always happens when you're communicating. Someone's delivering something, the other person's receiving it. And if you wanted to send emotional content like happiness, sadness, anger, maybe even neutrality, what has to be part of that? So what we studied with the NSF is it only a voice with something it's called suprasegmental. So these are the ups and downs of your voice pitch, the emphasis in certain words, the how loud you're speaking, the rate you're speaking. So is it just that you can just tell how someone's feeling only through speech alone? Is it only facial expressions, or is it the combination of the two? So not surprisingly, and then we fed this into a statistical analysis, and we found this is just like how human beings behave. You need someone's face and you need someone's tone of voice to give context to both the tone of voice and the facial expressions. Because I could be smiling and saying something not nice. So just because I'm smiling doesn't mean I'm saying something nice. So we studied that, and that paper got accepted by the NSF. And we published those results that they're going to be published in an online magazine called Scientia like next month. So that's one aspect. Lois talked about the customer discovery. She can tell you about that.
The customer discovery, and I think you were asking also about the evidence-based practices. And out of the 27 evidence-based practices, we fall into 10 of them. And I think probably the most important one that we do fall into is the video modeling and the video self-modeling. Those are really powerful evidence-based practices and tools for teaching students on the spectrum, in particularly how to accomplish a goal, how to act in a social situation, certain behaviors. So you can put in their face, and when their face tells themselves either what to say, what to do, how to act, it becomes really important and really powerful to that student. And believe those things just, I don't want to say magically happen or anything, but they really happen. It's incredible to watch a student who won't go on the bus, and you put their little face in there saying, it's time to get on the bus now. And they go on and get on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that works. That's pretty powerful. So it's that video self-modeling and just showing them rather than telling them. Because we all know that the visual strength is so much more powerful for kids on the spectrum than auditory. So it's showing them, not telling them.
Okay, remarkable.
Well,
so on the App Store, now I'm embarrassed to ask this, but we have a promo code here. Is that just so that we could look at it, or is that something you want us to share with the audience?
You can look at it, share it with the audience.
I beg your pardon and I apologize, but I just don't know. It's not in my notes. Whether was that just so that we could look at it, or is this a promo code?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that. All right.
We'd love you to take a look at it and share it around and show your
But
son your.
But the truth is that you do have a discounted price right now for April. If people go and get it right now at the App Store, $19.99, when you think about the things that we buy and spend for our kids and the ability to have them engaged and excited and learning and fostering speech, I don't think you can beat it for $19.99.
No, you can't.
So that's remarkable. Thank you guys so much for all the work that you've put in on this and all the time.
Congratulations.
And yes, congratulations. And again, really clever thing. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us again. We always enjoy coming
We're
to your show.
always thrilled to have you guys back. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be back with Tori Ridgway and his mom. Tori built the Buddy Bench to stop bullying at school. He's an Eagle Scout, and he's going to tell us about that. Okay, we'll be back.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts. We hear questions all the time, and we want to give you the answers that help make your journey in autism easier and more navigatable. Less than a year ago, we interviewed the top 100 doctors in the United States working with children on the spectrum, and we asked them a question in the cloak of secrecy. What are the top 3 mistakes parents living with autism do? Number 1, and the one that makes me laugh the most, is when they use their physician as a marriage and family therapist. 1, the doctors told me it made them uncomfortable, and 2, they were highly unqualified to provide that type of advice. So the night before your physician appointment with your MAPS doctor, get together with your spouse, significant other, and write out the list of the targets and the agenda that you want to cover at the physician's appointment. Get in sync. Then you'll be definitely spending less time and not making that doctor so uncomfortable. Second thing that was the most common mistakes parents living with autism make is they want to go too fast. And really, you want to pace yourself in the autism journey. We all know that we want to get our kid to be the best they can be and hopefully recover from autism. And what a lot of the doctors have told me is that you want to really pace yourself. 1, to let the labs be your guide, and 2, work with your physician on the prioritization and the delivery of the different medical interventions. The third most common mistake they felt families made was giving up too soon. And what you need to know is they're invested. They're looking at wanting to get the best from your child. But I tell you that when I got that and consolidated the 100 interviews with these physicians, most of the doctors who brought that up had tears in their eyes. They want you to know that they're in the fight with you, and they want you to know that hope is really real. It may take hard work and it may take time, but to not give up and to stay in the game. So let Talk of help you. We'll have some more Talk of facts for you in the future, real questions and real answers for the autism journey.
Talk to us a little bit about what your degree is in.
City planning or urban planning.
I got it from Cal State Northridge with a degree in cinema and television arts with an emphasis in screenwriting.
And what are you interested in, Eli?
A video game internship.
Computer programming.
I'm hoping to combine entertainment or travel, my 2 passions.
Ooh, what kind of jobs have you worked?
Bakery inventory.
Okay, inventory.
Want to talk about your volunteer job?
I was going to help the soldiers.
You volunteered to help the soldiers?
Yes. I interned in the national parks in the Santa Monica Mountains, which is very urban area. So I worked with the problems of how it's impacting the surrounding community, like the flow of traffic and the flow of people and what they could do to plan in the parking.
I've been to China. I've been all around Europe. I've been to Thailand, Japan, Australia.
You can create an app? That's impressive. Really cool thing. Can you teach other people how to make an app? If you have a choice between working or not working,
working.
You like working?
Yes.
Why? What do you like about working?
It is fun.
I would work.
Yeah? You would choose work? Why?
Because I have skill on that. Get paid and enjoy it, and want to make sure I have enough money so I can save it.
Why do you need to have a full-time job? I mean, it's kind of like a duh thing, right?
No, obviously, so I
Yeah.
could support myself
Right.
and hopefully a family down the line, but at least at first, myself.
I'm very dependable and always reliable and get to my job on time.
What excites you about working a job or being an intern?
Learning new skills.
Yeah. What has it meant to you having this job and having the stability of a job that you've had for multiple years?
It's meant the world because I'm able to do everything, but almost everything I wanted to do because of that job.
And we are back, and as promised, we now are joined by Tori Ridgway, who is a Maryland teen with autism who built the Buddy Bench as his project at school, and Vanessa Ridgway, his mother. Welcome to the show, Tori and Vanessa.
Thank you.
Good to have you both here.
We're excited to have you guys with us. We're going to start with a question for you, Vanessa. What signs did Tori display that made you question his doctor?
Not question his doctor, but question Tori himself. Early on, Tori ate very few things, one of them being bread mostly. Tori liked to line up cars, and they had to be exactly in a particular order. And he could lay for an extended amount of time and just lay and watch the wheels, just pushing them back and forth. When we asked him how his day was, he would just repeat. We would say, "How was your day?" And he would say, "How was your day?" Instead of the back and forth conversation, it would be more like echolalia.
Uh-huh. So did you bring that to the attention of his doctor? How was he eventually diagnosed?
Yes, it was time for his annual. He's going to turn 4, and I was concerned about him being able to talk or tell us about his day. And I wasn't concerned about him knowing his ABCs and his colors because he knew his numbers and colors and his alphabet when he was 2.
Uh-huh.
So I told the doctor that he was showing those signs. Those are some of the things that my husband and I noticed, and they referred us to Bethesda Naval, and we got our diagnosis.
Well, and we can't leave Tori out of this because you're an amazing young man. But for people who are watching, Tori, before you had a diagnosis, how did you communicate with your parents?
I talked in third person. Mom would say, "Does Tori want to eat?" And I'd say, "Tori wants to eat." I can't remember much.
You pointed. He did a lot of pointing.
I still do.
Uh-huh.
I do a fair amount of pointing. What kinds of things did you do? What was your favorite thing to do as a toddler?
Line up cars.
Uh-huh.
Watch Thomas the Train.
Yes, he liked to watch Thomas Train.
Yes, that's a personal favorite of my son still at 16.
Really?
Yes.
They've moved on to Polar Express now. He and his dad.
Okay, great. Now, what were some of the interventions you did once you got the diagnosis?
Well, first I cried.
Mm-hmm.
And the interventions we got was the first thing we did was get a hearing test to be sure that he was hearing everything fine. After we did that, our area had an early intervention telephone number that was given to us by our daycare provider on Andrews Air Force Base. So it's called Early Start, I think.
Uh-huh.
And we were to get him into an early intervention special education unit that was for school. He received speech therapy there. My husband and I also took him to a private speech therapist twice a week for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Tori also received occupational therapy, and what else did he receive?
You cover speech and occupational, right?
Yes. social skills therapy as he was older.
Okay.
And I'm curious, when did scouting come into the picture?
I was in 3rd grade.
Yes.
And it was an offhand conversation. We used because I was bored and I didn't have anything to do on Friday nights, and that's when our troop met all the time. So, Mom told me, "Why don't you join the Cub Scouts?" Because you couldn't join the Boy Scouts yet because I wasn't old enough.
I hear your dog, huh?
We're sorry.
No,
That's
it's
okay.
all good. It's all good live.
it's
Dogs
just
never cooperate.
families, yeah.
I have plenty of treats, trust me.
It's all good.
Now,
It's all
prior,
good.
I know the Scouts played an important role in your life, but you changed schools at a certain point, which really was helpful. Tell us about that, Vanessa.
Tori's early intervention was at a school that was not our neighborhood school. So once he finished that, the next year he was to be in kindergarten in our home school. That was one of the more challenging years that we went through because the school was not able to meet Tori's needs. His speech therapist was not able to meet his goals that were set on his IEP. Tori wasn't responding to the teacher. Occupational therapy actually was a blessing for us because we were in an IEP meeting and I asked for a pencil grip because Tori had a fine motor skill deficit.
Mm-hmm.
They refused to give us a pencil grip without having a full occupational therapy assessment.
Oh my.
Well, the blessing is that he qualified for occupational therapy, and that's rare here. And we're in Maryland, by the way. It's rare for children to qualify, and he did, and we met one of the most wonderful occupational therapists in the county.
And I don't think people realize how much difference a good occupational therapist can make because they really can be super helpful. It makes me crazy that they wouldn't even give you the pencil grip without the evaluation. But if that's what it took to get him the help that he needed, I guess in hindsight, amen to that. I really want to talk about the scouting and what scouting did in the bench, but I want to take a short break.
Okay.
So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and really talk about how scouting has helped him and the ways that he has used scouting to help a lot of other people. So everybody stick right with us. We're going to be right back with more of Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy after these messages.
A lot of adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids. What are they talking about? But when a child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. But it didn't matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself, why does my child stim? Well, first of all, let's talk about what stimming is. Stimming is a slang term for self-stimulatory behavior, which is kind of a misnomer anyway, because a lot of the times when our children engage in these kinds of behaviors, they're not to stimulate themselves. Sometimes they're to soothe themselves. So first of all, we want to get rid of the notion that it's to stimulate themselves. But they do these behaviors because there's something about it that feels good. And that's the main thing that we need to know as parents. It's not some random behavior. There's something about it that's giving the child a paycheck. And once we get an idea of what that might be, we need to find a behavior that can take that behavior's place and start to reinforce that. We want to pick something that's more socially acceptable. So if, for instance, the child is doing a lot of hand flapping because they like seeing their blurred fingers, then we can find something else for them to focus on, maybe a toy that does blurred colors. So for a period of time, they'll focus on that. The main thing to remember, though, is that there is a reason for these behaviors. There's something about it that feels good to the child. And once we know that, we can begin to change it. There's a phrase that's being used in the autism community called stimming. Welcome back.
And we're back with Tori Ridgway, the Maryland teen with autism who built the Buddy Bench to stop bullying at school, and Vanessa Ridgway, his mother.
And so we promised before we left that we would come back and talk a little bit more about the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts. We hear a lot of people talking about what an incredible organization this can be for individuals on the autism spectrum. And clearly this has been something that's been effective for you guys. So I'd love to hear from both of you, Vanessa and Tori, about what you feel, Vanessa, the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts have done for your son. And Tori, I want to hear from you what you feel like it's done for you.
Tori? I'll let you go first.
First and foremost, it's given me friends. When I came in, I had precisely one friend by my calculations. And I did a lot of algebra to figure that one out.
Man, that is a huge, huge thing, to have friends. It feels good to have friends, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Now I have a list of them that's several pages.
I
wow,
love that.
So great.
And Mom, what do you think it's done for your son?
Well, scouting has not only given him a safe place to make friends, it's like a no judgment zone for him. This group has pretty much grown up together. Scouting has taught Tori discipline. It's taught, he has 44 merit badges, so
that's amazing.
He knows how to think. What else do you know?
And I want to know, talk a little bit about this award that we're showing right now. What is this award that you got? It's a big deal.
Which one is that?
It's
the presidential.
I think that's what we're showing right now.
Presidential.
Talk about the presidential award.
That's because I got straight A's for 2 years when I went to Windy Hill Elementary, and I didn't expect to get it. There are people who had been there for like 5 years, like their entire life. And I was very surprised when I got it. All I had to do was get straight A's.
And Mom, what was that like for you? What exactly is the award? Explain it to us.
The Presidential Award for Academic Excellence is given to children who are on the honor roll for several years. And Tori has always been on the honor roll. He really has been very fortunate to have great educators to help him thrive, which is why we chose to take him outside of our county, because our neighboring county was able to meet his needs and allow him to excel academically. So he has two presidential awards. He got one in elementary school, and then he received one when he finished middle school.
What a wonderful thing.
So tell us about the bench and how that came about.
Well, we were confused about what we were going to do for my Eagle project, because I had just become a Life Scout, and we were riding down the road, and my mom always says that we have learned a lot in car rides, because 20 miles is a long time to learn stuff. And we were discussing what we were going to do, and we just came up with a buddy bench. And we thought about what has set me apart from everybody else, and what and what do we not want happening to anybody else, and what can really help the community. So we decided we're going to build a bench. And then we decided we're not going to build one. We're going to be overachievers, as Ridgeways always are, and we're going to build 2. And we're going to paint them blue. But Mom's not going to help.
And
There was a sentimental reason behind building 2 benches opposed to 1.
One went to Windy Hill Elementary, which is where I got my first presidential award, and the other one went to James Ryder Randall, which is my early intervention school.
I love it.
So he wanted to give back to the schools that helped him become the best Tory. And he wanted something that would help children who have a difficult time engaging or making friends, or children who are bullied on the playground.
So how does the buddy bench work?
Well, whenever somebody is sad or lonely, or they don't have a friend because they're either absent or they just plain don't have friends, they can sit on this bench, and it kind of works like a distress flare. And what I hope that teachers are doing at these schools are they're counseling students to recognize that when somebody's sitting on that bench, it's because they don't have a friend, and that they will come to the rescue and invite them to play tag with them, or whatever kids are playing at recess now. We don't have recess in high school.
Well, what's amazing about this to me, Tori, is that you have created a social cue. Because sometimes it's hard to tell when somebody needs help, when somebody feels alone, when, you know, like you approach somebody and you're not sure, maybe they want to be alone, right? But what you did was you created a social cue. So somebody sits on the bench, and that tells everybody that person would like for somebody to reach out to them. And that makes it more possible that it will happen. Because if I know you want a friend, then of course I want to talk to you. It's really an amazing thing. And I see, Mom, I see what an amazing mom you are. This whole idea of, and I want for all the moms that are watching to hear, because you were at a school where it wasn't working and it wasn't getting done, and you weren't afraid to say, then we're going to do something that isn't easy, and we're going to go someplace where he does get his educational needs met. And I heard your son say, we don't do things the easy way because we're the Ridgeways. Instilling those values.
Yes.
That's a pretty awesome mom, huh, Tori?
Yeah.
Awesome. No. Incredible.
There
we can't leave Dad out. He's at work, and he's doing his part to help.
Well, I'm sure he is.
And that's a wonderful thing too.
It sure is.
Well,
it's a big deal. You know, we all have our roles and our parts to play to make this thing work. It's not easy.
No.
It's possible.
Okay.
And that's the
every
thing.
Day
Thank you for that.
Every day you get up and what, Vanessa?
Every day we get up, we face the day, we face the challenge. If there's a challenge, we get through it. And I admire Tori so much because he's resilient, he is persistent, and he teaches me a lot.
Right.
Riding with him 44 miles a day,
80 miles
times how many years? 8, 9 years. That's a lot of time that Tori and I spend in the car together.
Right.
So he gives me teachable moments, and helps me to become the best mom I can be.
You're such an inspiration.
It's not I'm not perfect, so, you know.
Well, your family is a huge inspiration, and Tori, congratulations to you for all your awards and for this fabulous bench that you came up with.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We can't wait for you to come back with the next thing that you do. We'll have to have you back on a regular basis. Next time you have a brilliant idea and come up with something, let us know. That'll be next week, I have a feeling.
I have a lot of brilliant ideas.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. Well, we'll have to have you back on the show to share more of your brilliant ideas. But thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for reaching out to us. We really appreciate it, and we love to spread the word to the autism community that, you know, I once was a mom who was lost, you know, and other people helped me. And this is our way of saying, you don't have to always be lost. We are here. Just like you as a mom, we are here and we want to do something to help.
Thank you so
great.
much.
Thank you,
All right,
Vanessa
you
and
take
Tori.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. How wonderful are they?
Yeah, wonderful family.
Amazing, amazing kid, amazing mom, and I love hearing, you know, Dad's a part of that too.
Mhm.
That's a really happy thing, and I love that. It's not easy, but it's possible.
Mhm.
We all need to crochet that onto pillows. Okay, we've got 1 minute left, and so I want to start.
You want to talk about tomorrow's show?
Yes. Because tomorrow's show is a big, big doings. We're trying to take April out with a bang, not a whimper. So tomorrow on the show we have autism expert Marina Balkin is going to be with us answering some of the questions that you guys have written in. And then we have Bonnie Yates, who's going to answer questions of a
legal,
educational,
right.
legal ilk. And then Kobe Bird is back from The Good Doctor. He is the 16-year-old who was on the autism spectrum, who was a guest star on The Good Doctor. And previously, when we had Kobe on, a lot of our audience felt that I spoke too much, Nancy. I know you can't imagine that.
No, I can't imagine that.
Because I've never, ever done that before, she said sarcastically. So tomorrow, tune in, because I'm going to duct tape my mouth shut and let Kobe Bird speak to you. And then...
And Kobe's going to be performing at Denim and Diamonds for autism.
Is he?
Yes, he is.
What a wonderful
in
thing.
October.
He's a brilliant performer. Kobe is actually going to be on the red carpet for us this weekend at AutFest, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow with some of the stars from The Good Doctor, some of the stars from Atypical.
Oh, really? The Good Doctor are going to be there?
Yes, and a whole bunch of other wonderful, wonderful people. So Kobe's going to be covering some of that on the red carpet for us this weekend. But don't let me forget to say that that's at AutFest, and Matt Asner from the Autism Society of America and the creator of AutFest will be with us tomorrow as well.
Great.
With Kobe Bird. We're going to be talking about the whole AutFest thing, so it's going to be huge, huge, huge. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for
Bye-bye.
now.